Robert Coover is a postmodern writer and champion of experimentation and metafiction. His work includes various short stories, plays, film scripts, essays, and novels. He is known for breaking away from traditional approaches to writing fiction. He, along with other postmodern writers, explored unconventional writing styles, subject matter, and combined the everyday with the fantastic. Coover was born in Charles City, Iowa in 1932. As a child, his hobbies included parlor baseball games and travel. He also enjoyed writing poems and stories and editing his school paper. After graduating from Indiana University, he joined the Navy and met his future wife, Pilar. While in America, he has worked in teaching positions at many universities. His writing career began in the 1960s with a few short stories published in the Evergreen Review. Originally, he hadn't planned on writing anything besides short stories, but while living in Spain with his wife, eventually he began working on his first novel, The Origin of the Bruness, which is closely related to a short story, Black Dam. Before he captured the attention of the public in 1977 with the book that made him famous, The Public Burning, Coover had already established a solid reputation among academics and college audiences. He was known as one of the most versatile and original prose stylists in fiction, praised for his ability to successfully write in a variety of techniques. He's recognized as a postmodern writer along with Thomas Pynchon, William Gass, and John Barth, among others. These men are considered pioneers for departing from post-war American realism by experimenting with the fantastical, mythical, and surreal. Coover gradually strayed away from realism with his book The Origin of the Bruness. He used this book to pay his dues to traditional fiction by utilizing a more conventional writing style with hints of the surreal in order to prove his writing abilities. Many of Coover's stories take historical events or personal experiences and transform them into surreal situations. For example, the Universal Baseball Association came from his experience of parlor baseball games as a child, and the mine disaster in his short story Black Damp and novel The Origin of the Bruness originates from a similar event that occurred while he was living in Heron, Illinois. Coover is a master of metafiction. Metafiction became prominent in the 1960s with works such as Coover's The Babysitter. Metafictional works draw attention to themselves as works of literature, constantly reminding the reader that they are a piece of fiction and involving the reader in the process of fiction making. Ultimately, Coover wants the reader to question their relationship between fiction and reality. The concept of man as fiction maker is one that appears repeatedly in Coover's work. This idea is explored by characters that develop and then lose themselves in artificial strategies that attempt to bring order into their lives and give meaning to the world at large. These fictitious systems parallel systems in our society, such as religion and mathematics. Coover critiques people's acceptance of such systems by showing they are fictional at their core, created by man. In his novel The Universal Baseball Association, the main character creates a tabletop game of baseball. He becomes obsessed, believing the players are real, which ultimately brings him to life. In his most famous and controversial novel, The Public Burning, Coover tells the story of the Rosenberg case from the perspective of a fictionalized Richard Nixon. Robert Coover is seen as a true revolutionary who changed the course of American contemporary literature with his experimentation. He wasn't afraid to try new techniques and face harsh criticism as a result. Although criticized at the beginning of his career, his works are now praised as some of the best of contemporary American literature. He arrives just in time to see her emerge from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, to answer the phone. His two kids sneak up behind her and pull the towel away. She's trying to hang on to the phone and get the towel back at the same time. It's quite a picture. She's got a sweet ass. Standing there in the bushes, pawing himself with one hand, he lifts his glass with the other and toasts her sweet ass, which his son now swats. Ha ha, maybe that boy's gonna shape up after all. They're in the bushes, arguing about their next move, when she comes out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel. They can hear the baby crying, then it stops. They see her running naked back to the bathroom like she's scared or something. I'm going in after her, man, whether you're with me or not, Mark whispers, and he starts out of the bushes. But just then a light comes sweeping up through the yard as a car swings in the drive. They hit the dirt, hearts pounding. Is it the cops? I don't know. Do you think they saw us? Shush! A man comes staggering up the walk from the drive, a drink in his hand, stumbles on in the kitchen door, and then straight into the bathroom. It's Mr. Tucker, Mark whispers, a scream. Let's get out of here, man. The first thing to note is that the story is composed of many short, separate paragraphs. They are brief vignettes of the various events that occur over the period of the story. They are isolated in order to create the feel of many pieces of unfinished text. Coover avoids using names. He uses pronouns such as he, she, and they, or a common label instead. He's purposely vague so the reader can make their own assumptions. When Coover reveals their identity, it's often a revelation that comes as a shock, violating the reader's expectations. The next thing to note is the lack of coherent chronological series of events. In the first vignette of this excerpt, Mr. Tucker is already at his house, looking in through the windows from the bushes. In the one that follows, Mark and Jack watch as he pulls into the driveway and walks into his house, never stopping to peek in through the windows. Each paragraph begins in the middle of the action. We aren't told where Mr. Tucker is coming from or how the boys got to be in the bushes. Nothing is explicitly said about what happened before or what will happen after. We can only guess. This technique leaves the text unfinished, forcing the reader to put the pieces together on their own. Coover tells his story in present tense. This creates the sense that all of these moments, however contradictory, are occurring simultaneously, allowing for multiple realities. It also blurs the lines between reality and imagination, leaving the reader unsure of what is actually happening and what is only fantasy, because Coover describes them both with equal truthfulness and forcefulness. Also, Coover creates similar scenes in different vignettes. In this excerpt, we see both Mr. Tucker in the first paragraph and Mark and Jack in the second, crouching in a bush while spying on the babysitter, who was described as being wrapped in a towel. Coover uses parallel images such as these, repeated dialogue, and similar incidents throughout the story to perplex the reader and to connect contradicting events. Coover forces the reader to question reality and imagination. The story at times is told from a third-person narrator's perspective, such as in the second paragraph, but at other times we are inside the mind of one of the characters, like in the first paragraph, in which we are listening to the thoughts of Mr. Tucker. The reader is left questioning what is truth and what is fantasy. The Babysitter is a work of metafiction. Coover presents the reader with many slightly different versions of the same events to remind the reader that this is a work of fiction, that there are infinite ways the story could unfold. By presenting the different pieces of the puzzle, he invites the reader to participate in the construction of the narrative. He leaves it up to the reader to decipher what happens, if that's at all possible.